Hi, this is Gary Wallen. Again, I'm one of the elders of the church here at Del Mar, New York. And this is the second session on prayer and fasting, on fasting as taught in the scriptures. So I want to encourage you, if you haven't, you could go back and watch the first session, which is general information about fasting and a call, I believe, from God, inviting the church and his people to pray and fast. This session is going to be more practical, and so I have a bunch of points on practical guidelines for fasting. And so I'm going to kind of go through this, and hopefully it will be a blessing to you and helpful. The first thing that we want to mention is to start small. Start small. If you've never fasted before and you decide to go on a 40-day fast, that's probably not the best thing to do. So, number one, start small. So I'm going to suggest that if you haven't never fasted before, or it's been many years perhaps since you have fasted, and there's different ways you can do this. We're just making suggestions. But what has worked for me when I've started fasting after a long time of not fasting, I would start with missing one meal, perhaps an evening meal on a certain day of the week. And so the next week, and really it's better to keep that same day, you would extend that fast 2 meals. So in other words, the first day you miss the evening meal, and the second day you would miss the lunch and the evening meal. And then the third day you could miss breakfast, and you would have fasted for a full day. And then, and many times, and for different seasons of my life, I have fasted a day a week, which I have found very helpful. And it's amazing how your body grows accustomed to fasting. And if you haven't fasted for a long time and you miss one meal, your body's gonna, freak out on you, and it could be very difficult. But if you train yourself and train your body, as in many other things, your body will actually become accustomed, and you can actually go a day and really not miss a meal because you've grown accustomed to it. So in a short time, you would work your way up to fasting a full day, or maybe a couple days, or even 3 days. But you start small. The next thing I want to talk about is discomfort. Discomfort. And although your body becomes accustomed to fasting in many ways, but especially if you're new to fasting, and sometimes even after, there usually is some level of discomfort. But you gotta, if you haven't fasted before and you're starting to feel those hunger pains, I want to encourage you, you are not starving. You are not starving. And I read something many, many years ago, and it said that, and then it said that you're actually giving your body a chance to cleanse itself. And that simple concept really helped me a lot. And to see, okay, I feel uncomfortable, but this is really a good thing for my body. It's giving my digestive system a chance to cleanse itself, to cleanse the body, and to renew the body. Now, and to detox is what we would say. And some symptoms, and I was just going to mention this because I want you to be prepared beforehand. And many times that in itself will really help us deal with the discomfort if we're knowing that this might happen. And I've experienced all of these symptoms. They might include headaches, cold symptoms, nausea, weakness, lightheadedness, coated tongue, bad breath, disturbed sleep. Sometimes when I'm fasting, especially an extended fast, I'm tired. It's interesting because you'd be tired many times through the day, but then I go to bed and I'm wide awake. And I have found that my body, now I'm sure this probably isn't true with everybody, but I believe if you're relatively healthy and you're fasting, especially an extended fast, that your body doesn't need quite as much rest because your digestive system, which takes a lot of energy, is kind of on pause. And so it's actually a good thing. because you have more time to be with God, and sometimes in the middle of the night. And that's what fasting is about, isn't it? Intimacy with God. So that's actually a blessing for me to be able to wake up, to get out of bed, I'm awake, but to be alone with God and to be in a place where I can really commune with Him. And then sometimes, especially in the winter, this is an issue, and our fast that we're calling for is in the middle of the winter, and you will tend to feel cold because you don't have the food that acts as a furnace, and so you will feel cold. And if you have to be outside, you want to make sure to dress accordingly because you will definitely feel colder. So there's going to be discomfort, and our flesh will not give up without a fight. Breaking addictions, and many of us have, I call them addictions, sometimes it's the dependency on different things, that food and drinks, caffeine, sugar, and things of that such, that when we deny ourselves those things that we normally eat and digest and drink, there's definitely a lot of discomfort, a lot of anxiousness, but you see it again as giving your body a chance to rest, your digestive system, and breaking perhaps an addiction that you have to caffeine or to sugar. And that's powerful. We don't want to be addicted to anything. We don't want to be dependent on anything. And so work through that. And I read they talked about the healing crisis. So there's a real struggle, and if you could see it as a healing crisis, it's something that's temporary, it's not going to last forever. On the other side of it is great blessing. So look beyond the pain to the blessings. So just some practical things of dealing with the discomfort. Prepare beforehand is very helpful. So if you drink a lot of coffee and you know that you can't function without coffee, well, when you're fasting, a normal fast, which we'll get to that in a moment, but a normal fast is no food and water. No other liquids, just no food and water. I'm sorry, no food and drinking water. That's the normal fast. So that means no caffeine. And so that's going to be difficult. But if you could stop drinking coffee several days before, and you're going to probably have headaches and it's going to be uncomfortable, but when you get to the time that you're entering into that normal fast, you won't have to deal with that on top of the other things. So you try to prepare before, and then a day or two before you enter into the actual normal fast, if you stuck to just fruits and vegetables, that would really help you to minimize the discomfort that you probably will feel. And then during the fast, you want to drink plenty of water, good, clean water, purified water. And that's going to help a lot. And sometimes when, if there's some nausea and a lot of discomfort that's maybe affecting you and doing your job, a lot of people find it helps if you have a little fresh juice, fruit juice, diluted with water, or even some vegetable broth will help you to deal with that discomfort if necessary. And something else is getting outside, getting fresh air. Again, your body is cleansing itself. And the more fresh air, the more fresh oxygen that you take in, that will help the body to cleanse itself. And then taking showers, baths. And of course, Jesus said, when you fast, don't go around, gloomy all and trying to show people that you're fasting. You want to bathe yourself, so that people don't know you're fasting. Of course, if you're in a corporate fast, those who are joined with you will know. But you don't want to be, letting people know what you're doing. But also, bathing yourself will help the body cleanse itself of the toxins. And then dealing with discomfort. And there's other things that you could do, but I just want to say, avoid watching cooking shows. Really any, TV shows where they have a lot of food advertisements. When you've gone for 2 days without food and you're seeing some of the wonderful foods, at least tasty foods, it's going to make it even more difficult for you. So I would avoid watching cooking shows, certainly, and even TV in general. So another thing that you have to do, or that you should do, and that was dealing with discomfort, expecting some discomfort. But the types of fast, I've already alluded to some. There are actually a lot of different fasts, and if you again look online, you'll see as our society is getting caught up, it's almost like a fad, and it's a good fad. But the Bible basically has 3 different fasts that I'm going to mention that are mentioned, not by these names, but that are demonstrated. And the first one is the absolute fast, which we mentioned in dealing with Esther, who told Mordecai to tell the Israelites that they should not eat or drink anything for 3 days. That's an absolute fast. Now, I've never done that, and I don't know that I ever would. I don't think you should do that unless there was a real strong sense that God was directing you on that type of fast. And it should not be more than 3 days, because unless you were Moses, who came into the presence of God, unlimited presence of God for 40 days and 40 nights, it says he ate and drank nothing. Well, that was an obviously supernatural experience beyond the normal experience that any of us have. And so an absolute fast is something that you would really not normally do. And that's no food, no liquids of any kind. But the most common fast in the Bible is the normal fast. People say the normal fast, and that's no food but water. Jesus, he did not eat. It does not say he did not drink. And when the devil tempted him, he didn't tempt him with a glass of water, but he tempted him with food. So Jesus, no doubt, drank. He drank water. And so we would want to do that too when we're fasting. And then the third type of fast is the partial fast. And we see this especially in the book of Daniel, when Daniel, in the first chapter, and then later on in the book, Daniel, that's where you eat certain foods. You limit yourself. You limit your diet to only certain foods. And in Daniel's case, it was just vegetables when he, in that book, opens. And so a period of 10 days, I believe it was, Daniel and his friends just ate vegetables. And they did not eat all the foods, the rich foods that the other young men ate. And after 10 days, it's interesting that Daniel and his friends looked better than those who were eating the rich food that the king provided. And then later on in Daniel's life, he fasted for a period of 21 days, a partial fast, where he did not eat, it says he didn't eat meats or sweets or delicacies, which would be sweets, no doubt. So it was a limited fast. And that's something that certainly is helpful and good and biblical. And that's, you know, if you're going to be fasting 3 days, consecutive days, maybe the days prior to that, you would consider going on a partial fast where you limit your diet. Or some people fast 1 meal a day or 2 meals a day. So that is also could be considered a partial fast. So the fourth thing I want to talk about, the practical thing, is simply the corporate fast, corporate fasting. And that's what our church is planning. And the corporate fast is obviously when you're fasting with others. And most of the time that we're fasting, it's a personal fast. It's something between us and God. And, oh, by the way, I should have mentioned that when you decide what kind of fast you're going to fast and how long you're going to fast, that's something that you want to do beforehand. If you live with people, you obviously, and somebody else cooks your meals, like in my case, my wife, I have to tell my wife that I'm not going to be eating a certain day. And so you do have to, that's a practical thing I'm sure that you realize that you need to do. So you decide what kind of fast, and then you let people know, and you decide that before you fast, under the direction of God, obviously. And then the fourth thing, that was number 3, the fourth thing is corporate fasting. And that's when you're fasting with others. And that's a good thing because it really provides extra support and some type of accountability. I think if we let other people know, yes, I'm going to be committing myself to fasting 3 days, and you're doing that with a group of people, you'd probably be more prone to actually follow through on that. So that's a way of fasting and also a practical thing that you can do. And then the number 5 is removing distractions. Distractions. This is important because the whole idea of fasting is consecrating ourselves. It's separating ourselves from the things that maybe they're bad things, or maybe they're things that are not bad in themselves, but they still take up our time and our energy and our emotions. But as much as possible, we want to separate ourselves from these distractions, whether it be TV, social media, and we want to give ourselves, again, if you're fasting, obviously you're not eating. So you're not preparing food unless you have to prepare it for others, which can be a challenge if you're not eating and you have to cook food. In that case, you might want to, as much as possible, prepare that food for others in your family. And so you should be having more time. And when you intentionally remove the distractions that you can, and you give yourself to prayer, to the Word, studying the Word, sitting with God, that's really important. It's not, again, I mentioned in the last session, it's not a hunger strike. It's not just going without food for the sake of going without food, but it's denying ourselves what we normally have and need to sustain our life, but we're denying ourselves that so we can give ourselves to God. And it's important that we read His Word and we pray, we commune with God. And so I have found that to really be also intentional about keeping a fast journal, because God will speak to you during this time. And you want to keep a journal to record the things that the Lord speaks to you. And the 6th thing I want to say is simply this: expect results. Expect results. But to leave the timing with God. Jesus said, if you fast in secret, God will reward you openly. So we can have an expectation that during this time, and sometimes, quite frankly, after not eating for a day, not after eating for 2 days, you might feel really not very spiritual. There's been times I feel anything but spiritual, and I feel like this is like crazy. This is a waste. I can hardly do anything. But to know that God will reward you openly. It sometimes doesn't come during the time of fasting, but you're planting seeds. Every moment that you deny yourself, every moment that you say no to food and say yes to God during this time you set aside, you are planting a seed, and the Lord of the harvest will make sure that that harvest will come from that seed. Expect results, but leave the timing with God. And then number 7 is rest. Rest when needed. As I said, sometimes our sleep is disturbed, sometimes simply because we don't need as much sleep, but you will be tired. So it's just, again, trying to balance. You want to be active, you want to do the things that you would need to do, obviously, but then also to taking care, a little self-care, resting, and just maybe sometimes 5 minutes, just resting and relaxing, and that's helpful. And then number 8, which is extremely important, and in some ways the most difficult, and that is end well. End well. It's really important to end well. Now, if you've gone on an extended fast, and I say 3 or more days, don't celebrate the end of the fast with a gourmet hamburger and pepperoni pizza. You will pay for it. Your body will go into shock. You have just, cleansed yourself, and you have your digestive system has had a much deserved rest, and we need to ease into our diet. I want to encourage you to break the fast with whole natural foods. foods that are easily digestible, such as certain fruits and vegetables. And you do that for a day or two. The good rule of thumb is that if you fasted for 3 days, then it's going to take you 3 days to get back to your normal diet. If you fast for 5 days, and if you do it right, it's going to take you 5 days. But it's going to be a great temptation, because once the digestive system wakes up and you eat a little bit, then the next day you're going to feel that need to eat. But if you overload your digestive system, some of the physical benefits that have happened might not last. So I encourage you to really ask God for the grace to end well. And then once you get back to your normal diet, I'd encourage you to consider your diet and see if there's any changes, because you have really allowed your body to rest and to cleanse. And when we go to refuel our body, and if we did that, and remember, our body's a temple of the Holy Spirit. So as we remember that and ask God for the grace to make changes perhaps in our diet. So those are some practical guidelines for fasting. And now I want to share with you some of the benefits of fasting.